Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Everything Horror Podcast. My name is Paul Doski, and joining us is a man behind many projects and names of a fabulous series, if I may say, known as the Halloween Girl. And we're going to take a dive into the franchise and maybe see what's up Richard's mind, maybe how Halloween Girl can branch out and all this other stuff. But anyway, without me blabbering too much now, let's welcome our special guest, Richard T. Wilson. Richard,
thank
welcome
you,
aboard.
Paul. Thank you for having me on, buddy. I appreciate it, really.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I figured, with Darce giving you guys reviews and stuff, I was like, You know what, it's time to get you on board. So
well, I really appreciate you and Darce because you guys have been great supporters, and it means a lot to us all. Believe me, I can't overstate that. So thank you.
No, you're very welcome. I know it's very hard to get your work out there, and as somebody who has also co-written 2 comics with 2 buddies of mine,
I saw that.
It's very hard to even get that out there, and just everything else. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride.
It is,
and go ahead.
No, the thing of it is, I'm glad you reminded me of that because I saw that you had your book coming out, which looks very cool. And I'm like, what I have found in this so far, because this is only the second book I've ever done, is you got to figure out why you're in it to begin with. And once you figure out what you want out of it personally, not what you want out of it for somebody else, but what you want out of it for you, then you're in a better place. I feel like that's where I am more with this second book than I was with the first book. Was all new. So
Dead Reckoning.
But this feels more, I feel more like, okay, I'm in my spot. I know what I want. And I'm getting what I want. Like we were talking before the show started, and we kicked off the second book. It went on sale last Sunday. So we had not rented out, but we sponsored a showing of Son of Frankenstein over at the Colonial Theater where they shot the Blob. This is in Phoenixville, PA. We love going there. We love going to Blob Fest, all that stuff. And it was great because we did a giveaway of the book and all that stuff. And we had a nice long line of people who wanted to talk and chat and, get their autographed copies and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, all right. Like this, I love this. This is like, it was just nice meeting everybody. And I was so scared to death that would not work. You know what I mean? That people wouldn't care or whatever. I don't ever look at it like from that, like, oh, they're going to love this. You know what I mean? I'm always like, oh God, I hope, you know what I mean? I like it. And that's all that matters. But, the glass is always half full with me. So, that's just who I am. So I was scared to death last weekend, but it was so nice because I met basically people who are like you and me, I think, and very nice, very kind people and hanging out. It was like a birthday party. It was awesome. And I figured out, like, especially after last weekend, it's all kind of come together for me. And I feel much more comfortable, say, than I was a year ago when we were doing the first book. And I feel like I know where I'm at now with it personally. And again, rounding back to that, what you want out of it.
Right.
And that's really the deal. You got to figure out what you really want out of it.
Yeah.
And it can't be a shortcut to solving some other problem in your life. That's the thing I would say to everybody else. I went through that as a young guy too when I was making films. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm going to do this series, and then it's going to get picked up. And anyway, I'm not going to get into all my psychosis here, but but you know what I mean? Like just trying to solve all these childhood problems or whatever. But yeah, I think that's the key. Know what you really want. Period. No matter what you do.
And I say that's a good way to pause on that topic for a second anyway.
Yeah.
So, Richard, we'd come back a little bit. I know that was a mouthful from what I said, too, to make you want to say that, which was spot on anyway. But for people that may not know who you are, per se, or never even heard of Halloween Girl, per se. Right. So I guess, who is Richard Wilson?
Well, I started a long time ago. I found I loved writing at 10. And flash forward, many years later, I was in rock bands and all that kind of stuff. I just loved the arts, and I loved writing, and I loved, at the time when I was young, performing and all that stuff. So I got into theater when I was in my 20s and started to write plays too. And I started to get them produced and all that. as we were doing it, and I started to work for a theater where I was a playwright in residence, and they said, hey, could you write some educational plays so that we can tour schools? And at the time, it was the environment was really big. Like this is early 90s. They were bringing back the recycling. They were doing all that. It was a very big thing for about a hot minute. So I'm like, oh God, I can't write those things. And then I decided one night, I said, I'm just going to write what I want to write, and we'll see what happens. And I had a blast. And I realized that what I'd always wanted out of writing, what I got from other people, was you can really be entertaining and still tell a story of substance. Like when I was a little kid, the first thing that ever hit me was a cartoon version of A Christmas Carol. Half an hour thing. It was only on TV once because they took it off because it was too scary, apparently.
Is that old black and white one?
No, it's not the black and white one. It's color and it's animated, and it was out around 1972, and they put it in the movie theater. First they had it on TV, and then they put it in the movie theater. It got an Academy nomination, I think. Phenomenal. I mean, the way it condenses the story, and it's so beautifully, the art in the thing is amazing. That was the first time I saw something as a kid that I was like, I knew of Scrooge, but I didn't know the story. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like amazing. And I was just little. I was watching all by myself. And I just, I was like, you can tell stories, be really entertaining and really take people on a ride, but talk about important things. And back then it wasn't that, this is the early 70s, it wasn't that odd to talk about important things. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I came up. We were talking about nuclear war all the time, all you heard about on TV, and racism, everything. It was everywhere. Vietnam, obviously, and all that, but it was really the zeitgeist. It was really there. It was in the culture. It wasn't a time to be frivolous. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I grew up. And even in like comedies like All in the Family, my parents watched every week. You had important things in that comedy, but everybody laughed and entertained people. So that's where I came from, and I started to do that with the educational plays, morphed into doing teen drama series. I started my own company, Outreach Arts, and we started to do film. And I did my own teen drama series called Make Believe, which was really successful for us. We had an Emmy, several Emmy nominations, regional stuff. But we were seen, on PBS stations all over the country. So it was, and even IFC one time, which was really strange. But we did really well with that. And I really felt like I scratched an itch with that because I really wanted to do a lot of stuff for kids. And I've always loved to write for teenagers, 20-somethings. As I was kind of winding up that whole thing, quite frankly, listen to me winding up, I was getting burnt the hell out, man. I used to talk to kids who were in trouble for years and years and years. And I was talking to my buddy the other night who worked with me on it. And I said, I'd come home from interviewing the kids and I'd have my head in a sling for like 3 days because you'd hear these horrible stories, and I was never going to write these things from books. I always wanted to talk to the kids because I thought it's the only way to. And I think I'm one of those people that used up all their battery juice, you know what I mean, or really fast. And by my early 50s, mid 50s, I was starting to really
take a toll.
Yeah, it took a toll. Personally too, it was too much for me to handle after a while, and it was time to move on. I had a transitional thing where we started a second company, Shelley Films, segue into the Halloween Girl. The reason that even started was because my mom had passed away a lot long after my dad, and I said I really want to write something, but it can't be Outreach Arts. It can't be work. It's got to be just something for me, and I hadn't done something like that, man, in a long time. So my wife was like, do it, go for it, and we did. I had so much fun. It was so great. It was one of the best experiences I ever had making a film. And we did it, got into some great film festivals. We got some great reviews, and then I figured that would be it. And I go back to work. I couldn't. I was just like obsessed now. I wanted to write more about Charlotte, the Halloween Girl, this kid who comes from this like messed up home, she's a teen mom. She's 18. She dies on Halloween night in a car wreck due to a drunk driver after screaming match with her mother, or if her mother's just like her, but her mother's a real hypocrite, about everything. So, and I just couldn't, it had all the teen angst that I swear to God, I mean, as old as I am, I just still feel that. Isn't that weird? Where can I get rid of this, Paul? Is there a number I can call? Because I just want to I swear to God, I've got teen angst following me around my whole life. So we got into that, and then started a web series with her and other characters called Under the Flowers. Did 3 seasons of that. They were very successful. We got into a lot of film festivals, and we got really good response from reviewers on those films. But then it's kind of like, you're an independent filmmaker. You're making these kinds of films. You can only go so far. We had to cram everything into 20 minutes. And I felt like I'd done the best that I could do. And then the pandemic hit and all that. So it put everything on ice anyway.
Yeah.
And during that period, just a little bit before, but in that period is when I decided, look, I didn't tell anybody, but I tried to write graphic novel adaptation of The Halloween Girl. And I was so afraid it wouldn't work because I'm a huge fan. I love graphic novels. I mean, Neil Gaiman is like the Sandman series is one of my favorite things in life. You know what I mean? And I just, so I'm like doing it. And then finally I realized it's working. And I'll never forget, my wife and I were like it was like Friday night and we're driving out somewhere. And I told her, I said, I started this thing and it's working and I'm writing this graphic novel. It's the happiest I've ever been. And I think it's the best work I've ever done. Because I hadn't had a chance to really expand on all those years because I was working within a budget, very small budget, nonprofits, And it was like an awakening. I felt like I was 10 again. You know what I mean? I'm writing my stories in my room. And it was phenomenal. I thought, my God. So that's where things took me. And then during the pandemic, I cranked out, really 3 Halloween Girl books. 4 actually, but I didn't like the other one I came back to, and that's what we have today. That's the second book. So because I rearranged but she and Poe, her sidekick, got me through some tough times, so, and I do believe that as a result, because it was such a really tough period, I won't get into what personally for me, it was very hard. I mean, I know what it was for everybody, but everything just collapsed during that period for me in my head. It was very difficult. Everything caught up with me. It was really tough.
Oh yeah.
And I look at the work that I did, and I think it's for me anyway, as a reader, some of the best work that I've done because it's so personal,
Yep.
So, but it's mostly an adventure series. It's about friends, and they're out there battling the Hollow, and they are trying to save their little town, Crystal Springs, and all the time from, the Hollow taking over and in this way or that way. Even then they beat them, they come back in a different way, but there's a lot of personal stories in there too. It's not just, hey, the Joker's back again this week. It's like, there's more to it than that. We cover the pandemic in the very last book called Seasons of the Witch, which is that's not out yet. And all through a witch who forgot she was a witch. You know what I mean? And she's psychically causing all this havoc and doesn't even realize it, during the pandemic. And Charlotte and Poe have to find out where the hell this is coming from. So that's another book. There's another book where after they destroy the Hollow or put them on ice for a little while, Gods and Monsters, which would be the next one. They've got these little splinter groups from the Hollow that are trying to, start a new religion, sort of. You know what I mean? To cause havoc and destroy. And have a new god to worship, and they kind of like take over the toys of this little kid, and then he's their god. You know what I mean? He has no clue that he's anybody's god. You know what I mean? But he's like so they've got to figure out where all this is coming, and that's that's the scariest of all the Halloween Girl books. The next one is truly scary. Very. I think I was going through such a difficult time. It was a frightening time for me, and it's frightening in the book. A lot of these are very emotional books, but this third one that hopefully will come out, I hope next year. We'll see. very scary, very dark.
Right.
So I mean, that's that's the story. I mean, Charlotte and Poe are, I mean, Charlotte's this angst-ridden kid who has a very big heart, always does the right thing even when it's hard, and so does her friend who's older and probably a million zillion years old. She looks just like a goth kid, very kind of wisecracking, and she's like the big sister that they kind of bounce off each other. She's a little more sour than Charlotte, but very funny, and they're good, and they go out of it. They make sacrifices when it's hard, so it's kind of about being heroic when it's tough, when it's hard to be heroic. Not when it's easy. Not it's about making tough choices and sticking with them when they're not popular or there's a big sacrifice involved. So, and it's about friendship, and it's about, I'm on the Scout, it's about doing the right thing, but it's about people. I mean, it's really about, I think it's about friendship,
Well, friendship is the big key nowadays, right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's very hard, and it can be personal sometimes to even, like with you, Richard, I'll take you as an example, and like myself. So like, all of us were having a hard time with everything. It's very hard to find that one friend that you can rely on, trust on. Yep. And that way you can just, talk for a minute and just let it out. That way it's not building up inside of you.
Right.
And because otherwise it just eats at you, and it's just, when it explodes like a freaking time bomb.
Absolutely. Paul, the problem is we're all too isolated. You know what I mean? And I mean, what's cool is in our community with horror and all that stuff, at least, we get together and talk and like go to conventions, and you know what I mean? Or, what I'm trying to say? Like, and I think that we have some of the coolest people in the world in our horror world, because we all put it out there, And nobody, you know what I mean? Nobody's got their arms crossed from across the room. I don't feel judged when I go to, a horror convention or I don't know. It just feels friendly, and it feels like home. You know what I mean? I think we're a good group. I think we're a good model for I think in terms of being accepting. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about these idiots who go online and argue about, what was better, Halloween 2 or, or Halloween 6, or, I'm not talking fun and then argue about it. You don't argue about it. You just either like what you like, and that's it. You know what I mean? They're movies, for Christ's sake,
Well, I mean, let's just say, if it wasn't for being behind a screen and a keyboard, man, I mean, we could say things behind a keyboard and screen versus trying to say it out in the public. And then we kind of, we can get, what's the word I want to say? Attacked from different angles, I guess.
Yeah, right. But I mean, it's just,
but why would you want to do it?
No, exactly. But I mean, I think it's like, like you're a farmer, and it's like, you got to work on your crop. You want to grow certain things on your farm. And that's the hardest part. You just basically have to do that to be mindful of, like, I'll give you a great example. I mean, you watch Svengoolie, don't you? On Saturdays, do you watch Svengoolie or on Me Too?
No, I don't. Yeah, I'm usually just spending time with my family like I am right now. But I know, yeah, I don't really watch too much of anything during the weekend, really, unless it's like a movie or something on YouTube.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, Svengoolie's fun for me, and I came into his thing late. It's just funny. It's goofy. A lot of B movies, some classics on there. But the point is this: we get together. There's groups of us that watch the show that get together on Twitter. I'm still going to call it Twitter. I can't bring myself.
I can't. Yeah, actually stupid anyway.
Yeah. So I go to, and we get together and just hang out like we're hanging out at the bar or whatever, having a good time, laughing and watching the movie, joking around. We love the movies, but we still get to make jokes about it and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but it's like you got to curate the people that you're hanging with. You know what I mean? Because these people that I'm hanging with, on Svengoolie every Saturday night, they're just so much fun. And we've gotten together. We've shown up at like C2E2 and got to meet each other. And but I mean, you have to really, I find you have to work as hard at that as you do as when I was a director casting the films. And, I would go through a lot of actors, and I went out of my way to go to a good casting agency. And I'm saying you really have to invest time and effort when it comes to growing your own subset of the community, I guess is what I would say,
Yeah, like, so because of people like talking with people like you, Richard, and stuff who like direct or this and that and whatever, it kind of got me back in 2019 to direct and direct and whatever you want to call it, like edit and get out my first short film ever.
Cool.
And so I use people that I personally know and can trust because of like I can rely on them because
Right.
one, I've worked with them before or I've known them for like all my life. So, I know what they're capable of and all this,
Right.
so, all that pros and cons, whatever. So, yeah. So, so that was fine. Like trying to do the first short film was fine. But when the pandemic hit and all that, oh my God, what a pain in the ass that became. And then like, we wanted to get out the sequel to our Terror Trail to 2021, but instead that got pushed to 2022 because of everything that was going on in the world.
Right.
Everybody's schedule was not matching up, and it was just became like a great big cluster. And it was just like, well, what do I want to do? Like, I feel like I want to make something, but at the same time, it's like, what do I want to make?
Right. That's
so,
when you came around to the comic, right?
So in 2020, my friend reached out to me and was wondering if I could help him co-write the Sock Hop Killer. So that came out in May of 2021. So that kind of helped feed that bug a little bit.
Right.
So there's still something that came out, and so then that helped fulfill that year, I guess you could say.
Right.
And then 2022. Terror Trail 2 finally came out, and with that probably was our best practical effects yet, in my own opinion. But and then me and a friend were just bored one Halloween, and we're just like, dude, we got 2 pumpkins. Like, let's make a short horror movie about this. And so we made a short little horror film called Pumpkin that is like 3 minutes long. So
that's great.
Yeah. And so then that happened. And then of August 2022, my other buddy reached out to me to try to work on the latest comic that is coming out, whatever you want to say. Like, I have copies of it, but I'm trying to also get it on Amazon for him because he's never had any of his stuff like on demand per se. I'll just say or print on demand. So like, I've been talking to him to be like, look, dude, like I feel like you need to get your work out there more. Like, let me show you what it's like, and let me see how you feel about having it like this be like your first like print on demand. And I'm like, and then I go, well, if you like it, then maybe you can take the other 6 comics or whatever that you have, and then you can just put them out there too to see, just say like, you're trying to grow your audience.
Right.
So yeah, so that's where I am now, basically.
That sounds like a good place. It sounds like you're getting the stuff done. And I think one of the things we learned in the pandemic was what can we do where we don't have to rely on a lot, where we can still do it and just get it done. You know what I mean? And not have to, because it's a hard thing when you've got the brakes put on you, like we had that done with all of us. And I think we were just talking about this last night. We were out with friends at dinner, and just how it's changed us in so many ways. And I think that's one of the ways. It's like, man, I got to tell my story. And what I've learned from this is I got to find a way that I can tell my story no matter what,
Right. Yeah. What platform works for you?
Right. And if I were a decent prose writer, which I'm not, I'd do that. I mean, I'd write the novels. I'd write the horror novels and all that kind of stuff. But I suck. I can't write that stuff. I do dialogue. I do story. I mean, I do. I feel like I paint pictures, and that's the reason film and comics work for me. You know what I mean? Like I don't.
Do you feel? Do you feel though when you do write between your filmed and your Halloween Girl,
Mhm.
would say, um, do you feel there's a slight difference between writing between like even a play, man? Like, is there a difference between
Yeah.
like
Well,
writing a play, film?
play is very different for me. That's something that like I look back and it's hard for me to even. I was like a different person, but then there's a very different form. But I will say that writing screenplays. Somebody asked me this the other day. Writing screenplays and comics, I think, are very similar. They feel. I mean, it's all about action. It's about action. It's character driven. It's and it's very dialogue driven. I mean, you can. Not that plays aren't. I don't mean that. They're a little too dialogue driven. Um,
Well,
but
yeah, it relies on the character to
yeah, move the story along.
move it
And
and
Paul, it's a pacing thing too. It's a
yes,
pacing thing because film and comics, there's the pace has got to move. We're not
hmm
going to stay too long on one shot for 20 minutes. We're going to be moving. We got to
yeah,
move. We got to move the story along. And I think the element of music, and in my case, rock and roll, I mean, is there in both film and comics. When I write, I think of music all the time. Like if it doesn't feel like music as it's going along, it's not working. Then it's a bunch of disparate, connected ideas. I had written a Halloween Girl draft earlier this year that I pitched. It had some neat ideas, I think, did not work. And I went on to write something that did work. That came out, Hemlock Ave, which is an anthology I have coming out next year, comics, graphic novel.
nice.
But no, I think they're really similar, and I think that for me, the music in both of them is the same. It's a rock and roll beat. It's like bang, bang, bang. I think of Jumpin' Jack Flash all the time it's always dun 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 dun. It's just and then that's what it is. It's Jumpin' Jack Flash. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Like
get
that.
it. Yeah, I
So
totally get it.
that's why I love Scorsese's movies because of all his use of music in his films. You know what I mean? I love that. It was even his early films. I
Mhm.
don't know how he got the rights, um, but um, but yeah. So I think they're similar.
They're
I think
similar.
they're very
Yeah,
similar.
yeah, I could see that. I mean, I'm still learning the whole comic book thing myself of how to write. Like when I write, so the joke to the sock hop killer was, well, if it wasn't going to become a comic, it would definitely become a book.
Yeah,
Because of the way that I was writing it, because I was writing way too much. Like I would write in a backstory, I would write in this, I would write in that,
that's
and
great.
I was just like, well, yeah, this is everything. So I
Right.
mean, I know you would want it to trim down, obviously, but it's like I don't know what we could take out because I feel like everything here is important to me. You know what I mean?
Well, it sounds like you enjoy writing prose, though. It's like you're. It's almost like you're forcing yourself into.
The universe itself,
Yeah, I mean, maybe it is just like you said. Maybe it's a novel. It's a horror novel.
right? And so I've been going back and forth about that. Maybe like I could, like if I don't finish uh, the storyline for Sock Hop as I'm trying to figure out, but like I have two more ideas for the Sock Hop universe per se,
Hmm.
and then I want to kind of just let it end that way. But I don't want to say too much, but I'll just say like the way I'm trying to build up between like if there is a next issue to the final issue would be like it's a way of trying to say good versus evil, right?
Hmm.
And then it's like so who wins at the end? That's the way I'm trying to do it. Like, but
Yeah.
I also want to bring it so it's like, well, who actually won?
Right. But it'll be a definitive kind of thing. It'll be the audience will know. It won't be this kind of like, did they win or didn't they win? I mean, would you leave the door open a little bit at the end
I
or
would,
not?
I would.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because I love it when projects, and I'm saying that as in films,
Yeah,
a story I'm reading, like comic wise,
right.
where they leave that little door open so that the imagination can go wild. If you
Totally.
have
Yeah.
that definitive answer, then that's it. You don't need to go back to it anymore.
See, you're spot on with all this. I think all great art, no matter what it is, whether it's whether it's a comic book, whether it's a great painting, there are doors left like ajar everywhere, and that's why Hitchcock is brilliant.
I
Hitchcock lets
fucking
you use
love
your
Hitchcock.
imagination. Yeah, what's that?
I love
You
Hitchcock.
love Hitchcock too?
Oh,
Okay,
oh
good.
God, yeah.
We were just talking about Hitchcock the other week. Yeah, we were talking about Hitchcock last week at the book thing, and Hitchcock was brilliant with that. Hitchcock left the it was. This is the thing. This is my philosophy when it comes to art, and Hitchcock did it brilliantly.
Oh yeah.
Art is a conversation. It's a conversation, and if you're not having a conversation in art, when you're writing your book, you're leaving space. I
Yeah.
mean, you know what I mean? You're having a conversation with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not doing that and you're didactic and you're just like, well, here, this is how things are. Well,
Yep.
who are you, right? I mean, what are
Right.
you, what are you, a little god suddenly? You're going to tell everybody how things are? And
How
no,
things run, yep.
all
Everything
we
else.
can do
Yep.
in art is have an excellent conversation with each other, and that's it.
Yeah. If
And
it doesn't
that's the
spark a
most you can
debate,
ever hope
then
for.
you're doing it wrong. That's the
Right.
way I look
I,
at
I,
it.
I agree because we've all seen those movies, we've all read those books, and they suck, and nobody remembers them. They
Yeah.
suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true.
Well, yeah. So, like, so within one of the drafts that I submit to my friend for the sock hop, because he was asking me about the second
Right.
story. So I submitted it to him, and he was just like, well, where's the sock hop killer? And I'm thinking to myself, didn't we just talk about how we are done with this killer right now, and we're focusing on continuing who this person is? So now it's like a different, it's supposed to be a different killer. We're not trying to bring in the same goddamn killer from last
Right.
time.
Right.
We're trying to expand it,
Right.
like we're trying to show more of like who this particular character is, and what's going on, which is what leads into the final thing about the whole good versus evil thing, which is why, like, as I was trying to set it up, I was trying to set up, I'll say, like three twists within it.
Mm-hmm.
But he somehow was not understanding what I was doing, and I was just
Okay.
like, I don't know how much more obvious I need to be.
Okay.
And so we sat down and did a video call, and I'm just like, I mean, I'll probably, if I find out he listened to this, oh well, whatever. I'm not saying his name, but I mean, I'm pretty sure if he listened to this, he knows exactly who I'm talking about. Anyway, so anyway, we did a video chat, and I had
Right.
to almost explain every scene to him,
Okay.
and I just felt like I was trying to tell him why I chose it like this,
Right.
and then why blank at the end is the way I ended it, so that it leads to the third issue.
Right.
So
But it sounds like
yeah,
conceptually you're coming from two different places at this point. You know what I mean?
right,
And that's what it feels like the way you're describing it. It's like you're going off, taking things, expanding the universe essentially, and he's like, no, what about, we want to stay on this street over here,
right,
right? Am I reading that? Okay.
That's what it sounds like to me. Like, even though he's trying to tell me he wants me to write it, so if I'm trying to write it though, and I'm trying to expand it like that, then why is he trying to tell me I need to stay there?
Now I know.
Especially,
But Paul, if things went south and you guys agreed to kind of just say, okay, well, you've got enough of your own original story that he's not kind of going for or whatever, and you create your own sock hop character or whatever, you know what I mean, like and go in that direction. And I mean, my God, there's a million, I mean, there's all kinds of serial killers, and you know what I mean, like I mean You know what I'm trying to say, to choose from about, you know what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
If it were me, I would just you get to a point before you start getting into an argument, you just say, hey, let's just go our different ways with this, and I'm going to take this, turn it into something of my own, and then just move on from there, because it sounds like you're itching to do that. I'm saying this live. I'm saying this on publicly, like picking your brain publicly.
No, you're pretty much spot on. I just feel like if he doesn't want to take the way that I'm trying to take it, then I feel like Sock Hop is done, and then I'm moving on, which I pretty much did. Like, I sent him the second and third issue, and I said, "This is everything how I would love the story to end, and then we can just end it. And if you don't like it, well, that's fine. I mean, I'm done. Like, I feel like what I'm trying to do here is, like, if you don't like the idea of what I'm trying to portray here, because it's not gory enough or something, it's like, then you tell it and I'll just back off, because this is technically your baby, not mine. But he invited me into it, is what I'm saying, I guess.
Right.
So anyway, so I'm still waiting on an answer for that, by the way. So I sent him all my files and be like, this is what I want. This is how I want it to end with the good versus evil thing. And this is why once again, I said, this is why I have like this twist in here, this twist in here. Because I'm trying to make the reader basically go like, oh my God, like, what is this character? I don't want them to feel like it's like a normal character.
You should just, regardless, you should just go ahead with it.
Mm-hmm.
And do your own thing, regardless of whether you ever get an answer. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, I know you will get an answer. I'm just saying, but what's stopping you from having your own thing? I mean, he obviously is not going for what you want to do, but that shouldn't stop you from, no matter what the situation, it shouldn't stop you from doing it.
So that's where my second friend comes into play.
Okay.
So he'd been having that itch to work with me too. So me and him were talking, and once again he brought up, well, maybe we can like have the project that we're doing into the same universe of Sock Hop. First thing I said about that is no. I'm like, no. I want whatever the hell we're doing between you and I. That's it. I don't want anything going into like what me and the other guy are doing, because I just feel like Sock Hop is me and him. Whatever we want to work on is me and him, like it will be our own little baby.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, well, what do you have in mind? And I gave him the idea. I'm like, I just don't have a story per se of how we could make it work, but I want this type of creature because it's a nice, cheesy, stupid monster, but we all love those cheesy, stupid monsters.
Yeah.
So he took that monster and pretty much within 20 minutes wrote up a story, and I said, dude, I love it, so we'll go with that. So a year later, or a couple months later, he finally started to do it because, from the COVID pandemic shit and finally calming down, and we both started different jobs, so now we're trying to figure out like when we can talk to each other and different that. And because he's graveyard shift, I'm morning shift.
Okay, so that's tough. I had a buddy like that too. He just switched back to daytime.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. So we figured out that Thursdays and Fridays would be the best time for him and I if we needed to discuss anything. So that's what we did. And next thing you know, here we are. A little over a year later, and we have it done. It's printed, so now it's just like, this is my new baby per se.
That's great, and that's great, and I mean, it's just like, and now it's just about throwing shapes, and getting your characters out there daily, as much as you can,
Yeah.
Every week at least,
Yeah, so we basically created I'm going to call it a series, kind of, because that's the way he was kind of making it sound like what he wants to do. So we're calling this like From Beyond. Okay. So almost think of like Twilight Zone.
Oh, so cool.
So think of like any story that we make after this one is like just its own episode.
Right.
But it's
Very
going to have
cool.
that from beyond.
Well, that's funny because that's what happened to me this year with my own Twilight Zone. I mean, that's what Hemlock Ave is. It's like my stab at the Twilight Zone, but I had no intention of writing it. I finished that crappy version of of the Halloween Girl book that I told you I ditched,
Right.
and I said, it just wasn't clicking. And then I said, I kind of have this horror story in my mind. I thought I just to write it to get it out of my system, just to see what happened with it.
Yep.
And I did, and I was like really happy with it. And then these other stories started coming out, and they were much more personal than they're as personal, maybe even a little more personal than this current Halloween Girl book. And I have to tell you, it was mind-blowing because it was really like
would you say like a wake-up call? Okay.
I mean, it was, what it was like? It was like putting the nails in coffins, of things, and really, but it all happened so fast. I don't have my therapist said, she goes, most people take their time, and you just kind of,
rush
like,
it.
When things start coming, they just like, and it's that way with the writing too. But the hard part for me this year was all this stuff came out, and I think it's some of my best work, but I couldn't keep up with it. Your life is like changing left and right through this. You know what I mean? I never in a million years thought I could say these things and do these things. You know what I mean?
Have an audience to speak to.
Yeah, have an audience to speak to in this way, and also write this personally. And that was a lot up here. I mean, it was like, and it was just a tough year. We had a lot of friends and family pass away, and
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but it was one of those like big transitional years. It actually is starting to feel normal and better now, but it was like this stuff just came out of nowhere.
Yep.
And I was just floored, because it really, I can say, I've written some things and had experiences that change your life, but I will say that these stories, the Halloween Girl book that's out now, and these stories that remain unpublished for Hemlock Ave, which I hope to get out next year, they were life changing. You know what I mean? I said in some interview recently, I said it was like the universe gave me this really strong drink, and I am still hungover. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
a good.
I've been hungover from this thing like all year. Like I'm just staggering around, feeling sick to my stomach. So that's what it was like. But I can't wait to share these stories because.
Well, that's good. You got that itch to get them out, and that's always good.
Yeah. Well, Charlotte shows up, and Poe show up in a couple of them, like as guest stars. So, but I have a new character too called Alma, and she's kind of the hostess of Hemlock Ave. She's the one recurring character on Hemlock Ave.
Nice.
Which sort of exists, but does it exist? It's on a map, but we can't see.
I love those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those.
Then certain people find it.
That's cool.
So
I like that.
So it's funny because you're talking about your anthology series, and it's like I guess we're all kind of going back to our childhood. You know what I mean? And writing Twilight Zone episodes.
Well, I think that's like the best. I call it medicine, but in the way it is though, because everything nowadays is kind of. They're trying to transform into something new, and I don't like a new format, I guess would be, but it's almost sounds like it's not working.
Right.
But when you go back to the old ways, it's like, this is what we love. This is what we're used to. Right. And then, when we were talking about, leaving the door partially open, like when you end something, so that way we can let your imagination run wild. So I have an example with that. Like, look at what happened with the Alien franchise. Right?
Okay.
So we were fine with, I call it the 3 movies. People who used to call it the 4 movies, whatever you want to look at it. But then we got Prometheus. And then that completely became Camel to the Engineers. So now it's like, all right, so our imagination of what these things are back in like the first movie and second movie it's like it's sort of been answered. So we don't even need to think about it anymore. It's like our imagination of what we thought we were is now
Right,
gone because of
right,
that movie.
right. And I mean, at least in, I mean, and this, we people can argue this all day long, but at least in the franchises with the Halloween franchise, for instance, you'll everybody's always debating who the hell Michael Myers is, you know. But it's almost like there's so many doors left open. You know what I mean? Is he a thing? Is he a guy? Is he you know what I mean? And
It
that's
all
good
depends
because
on the
that's
timeline.
what keeps people coming. Keeps people coming back. You know, it's like I wonder what take they're going to go this time because we've never answered that question. You know what I mean? We've never truly answered that question. We don't know. It's still kind of a mystery, even with the last movie. And you're right. What's the point of keep? You know what I mean? It's like just start a whole new movie series. Why are you? You know, but that's just money. I mean, that's just like let's just slap the name on it so people will come see it. You know?
That's exactly what they did with the last
Yeah,
one.
yeah. I mean, that's it. So you know, but you're right. You got to have. I mean, the point is, it's not like you're doing this to gin something up by leaving doors open. It's not like, oh, it's a technique. That's life. And
Yeah,
if you're reflecting life, real life, in whatever you're doing, you got a good piece of work. It doesn't matter if you're trying to, you know, go against that grain and not be honest. That's what I'm saying. Audiences respond to, oh, you see me. Okay, I see you too. We see, oh, I got that. Yeah, me too. I got that going on too. You know, it's when you try and put yourself above your audience or anybody and you try and like create your own world with its own world. It's like, no, no, no. We live here. You can call it whatever you want to call it in your story. But you're talking to people of Earth. You know, you're talking to people who struggle like you do. They can all in your story. They can all be green but they're still humans. You've got to have you've still got to have that heart there in order to communicate. You
right.
know, and I think people lose that. I just think people get caught up in concepts, and I said the other day about we lost our way in the 90s in a lot of ways because it became about money and fame more and more. And if you look back, there's a huge, it's like the mediocrity that got pushed up as like genius because there was nothing else around. There's no room to make really good art when your culture suddenly shifts to money and fame. Then that's all people are working towards. They don't have time to actually sit down and have a conversation through their art with somebody. They're too worried about tricking enough people to give them money to do another one. You know what I mean? It's a huckster game.
Right. And as you notice too, where I forget the technical term that they use, but it's like so great. I'll use you as an example because this would work perfect. So Richard, like like you've done short films, you've done graphic novel books, stuff like that. So that's almost like what's stopping you from doing a full length movie of Halloween Girl, or if, let's just say a couple, right? Let's just say
Yeah.
a trilogy. For the sake of this this debate here, conversation, let's say you want to work on a Halloween Girl trilogy, right?
Right.
So once that trilogy is done, released, right?
Right.
So is that what people are now going to look at you as? You cannot go back to short films, right? Because now they expect you to be known for the full length, right?
Well, if they were successful, yeah, that's what people would, yeah, you're right. People would say that they would want that, but that's up to the person. I mean, that's the thing. And I think you can, I mean, to me, and I think it's because if I were a kid and I were younger, I might be different, but now I'm too old to say, I'm kind of like, I'm going to just go do what the hell I want and kind of, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you've lived your life and I made a lot of choices to not go in that direction because I wanted the stuff that I did. I didn't care if the audience was small. I wanted it to make a difference. I didn't care whether a gazillion people saw it. And, it would be nice, but it was more important to me to do what I thought I was supposed to do. My gut was telling me to do. Like write the kinds of things that would
Right.
actually be useful.
Hmm.
I mean, that's, as opposed to just, I don't know. Like I said, I just want to have something that people can take out of their back pocket and use when they need it. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Let me rephrase what I was saying too a minute too. So I guess what I was trying to say is like, as you're known to do those three full length movies compared to the
right.
short. I guess what I'm trying to get with that uh, example is, so a short film. Let's just say I don't really know your budget for Halloween Girl, the first short, but anyway, let's just say Halloween
Right.
Girl was $1,000 to make, right? Now let's say between each Halloween Girl full length movie that you were to make, like I said, for the example here,
Mm-hmm.
now let's say it was like 10 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people are going to look at you and say, oh, you can't make a movie now if it's less than 10 grand.
Yeah. Right. Right.
That's what I was trying to get
Well,
at.
that's where but that's what I mean. That's where we're at, unfortunately, because that's what the business end of it. They won't tolerate anything else.
Right.
I mean, I was
Right.
reading an article, an interview with Scorsese that's in GQ this month, and I saw it on my phone. I was like, oh, because I love him, And he was talking about how he quit, how he was ready to quit over the last 20 years, like because the studios were such jackasses. They wanted, oh, can't we have one of both characters live so we can do sequels? You know what I mean? Like for one of the movies, I forget which one because he was talking about several, and he was like, where the hell do I fit? I don't even know where I fit anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
he's one of the greatest filmmakers ever, and he's
Yeah.
like, he's left to feel like that because they're jackasses. They're all just, these people who are running the studios. It's all literally
Categorizing where
there
you
is
are.
no room for development of anything, and it's just that way generally. And it wasn't always like that, and
Right.
it just wasn't.
No.
If you've been around long enough, you remember when studios, movie studios, and music labels developed. They were there to make money too, but they were also smart enough to know that they had to develop new talent. They don't do that anymore.
No.
They just don't.
Yeah, it's become sad, and like, I mean, I know the strike just ended. And stuff like that, and
Right.
like, I see the pros and I see the cons to this. So I don't know if you just read, but now that the strike is over,
Right.
places like streaming platforms are now increasing their price again. So I mean, I get
Well,
it.
you knew that was going to happen once they got a deal. You knew that they were going to Netflix.
Well, how else are they going to be able to pay off their writers or whoever the hell, like they gotta, if writers are trying to get more money because they don't feel like they're getting paid enough, obviously in order to make money you need to raise up the prices, unfortunately,
Right.
because of the inflation and all that crap.
Right.
But yeah. Like example is, I just read Netflix now is going to be $15.50, but how long until the next one?
Yeah, but you know what's going to happen? They're just going to wind up. They're just going to wind up cutting back on production. That's what everybody's saying. They're not going to have the people pay $15.50. They're going to all go the way of Disney, which is like, yep, too much money for me. Bye. Like people are like, who used to go to the park all the time annually, are like, no way. That's where they're headed, and they're only going to wind up hurting. It's going to hurt everybody in the end because they're going to wind up shutting down productions. They're just going to say, well, okay, then we can bring our prices back down if we get rid of, a bunch of content, and that's what's going to happen, in order to have it. I don't see another way, because I don't see them getting suddenly more generous. You know what I mean? And saying, you know what, we've got to think about the way we do business differently.
I
don't
honestly
see that ever happening with these people.
No, I honestly think, real quick, Richard, you brought up an interesting point. So I think if they're going to stop production and slow things down or take away, what I think they really need to do is reach out to the people who are going to be watching and see if it's something of interest before they waste whatever money, because who's the streaming service? It's CW, I want to say, or maybe
Okay.
even AMC, right? Like
AMC maybe, yeah.
they'll start TV shows, and then they watch the goddamn season, and then they cancel it.
Right.
So, what could they have done
Well,
to
see,
not
a lot,
upset people?
but a lot of these shows, I mean, they're all different production companies. And for instance, when talking about AMC, when Nosferatu, what I'm saying it the wrong way. The ones I'm saying it the wrong way.
Oh,
Nosferatu, the TV show, it's it's a play on Nosferatu.
oh,
You know what I'm talking
okay.
about, the girl, the motorcycle. It was on 2 years ago. AMC.
Yeah.
I can't. I will. What I was going to say was they did a really good campaign when that show was on. It was only on for about 2 seasons, but they did a really good campaign. And it was supposed to end after 2 seasons. Apparently, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember it, but I just remember being impressed. Like there are certain, because most of this stuff anymore is finite to begin with. It's like, well, we're going to do, and then we're wrapping it up and we're done.
Oh, here's an
They're giving
example.
an end game, but I guess you're talking about other shows that never got that chance. Like they just
Well, look at
fizzled.
Winchesters. Look at Winchester.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, they were trying to what was that, a prequel, I think, to Supernatural? I don't know, I never watched it, but I just know it lasted one season and it didn't do too well because of that fact.
Okay.
But anyway, but yeah, I mean, that's a good example to say, like, well, maybe did it not work because it wasn't anybody from the original series? I mean, like, how can you have Winchester? Like, I haven't seen it, so I guess I can't really say it like the way I want it to. But if it's the way that I think they tried to do it, is how come they can have the Winchesters, but they're making it so that it looks like it's some other relative, maybe? And it's like, is it supposed to tie into the original with Sam and Dean? Like, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know where I'm trying to go with this conversation, but
I think that there's an easy way to keep your ear to the ground if you're working for one of the major companies. And I think a lot of it is, and I would assume they would be doing this, I don't know, following social media, all damn day long and seeing what people are talking about, what's trending, what people keep coming back to. You know what I mean? It's almost like you've got to get people that are good enough to be able to get into people's minds, and like as if they worked for the CIA or the FBI. You kind of really got to be able to see patterns that most people can't see. And from those patterns, that's where you can pull things together. And I will say for myself, I mean, that's actually something, and I get this from my aunt. I have a great memory, and I can remember patterns. You know what I mean? Of behavior.
Oh, behavior of
That's really what I'm trying to
patterns.
say. That's the missing. It's patterns of behavior. And I think that's the way that the studios stay ahead and hear what people want. But you've got to really invest in people doing the research. And it's not just enough to go to a Comic-Con one weekend. It's got to be an everyday thing to really get to know that audience.
That's where I feel like is what they did with Saw X now. So, but my theory because of Saw X is because, well, after Tobin Bell's character died in the third one, even though he kind of mentioned in the fourth and fifth, but like 6 and 7, like, because Tobin Bell wasn't really per se, well, I'll say 4, 5, and 6 and 7. Since Tobin Bell wasn't really technically in it, it kind of flopped. But besides the traps, some of them started to be stupid. I'm not gonna lie, some of it was kind of stupid. But and then what did we get? We got Jigsaw, which brought back Tobin Bell a little bit, and then we got Spyro, which was But I think they were noticing that if you don't have Tobin Bell starring in it, nobody's interested anymore, right? Because Tobin Bell was what made Saw.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like if you're taking out a key element, there was something, but it's almost like a football team, with the quarterback is carrying everybody on this football team because the rest of the team sucks, and he's the only thing we have, that's a stupid way to make him right. Anything.
But if you take out that
quarterback, yeah, you take him out, and then that was the big tent draw. Then nobody wants to come. But you have to figure out what was so compelling about that character.
Right.
And I mean, I don't think people take the time to break that part of it down, the sociological parts. Oh man, did you ever read that book, The Monster Show, by David?
I don't think I have.
Oh, you got to look that up because it talks about the social through the years, through the decades, about how the films we were watching, the horror films, their connection to society.
Oh yeah,
to the times that they were brought out in. If you haven't read it, I read it years ago, and it's a fantastic book. And I'm saying that's the kind of effort that has to be made to understand the films that work within a given time. Like when I was little, The Exorcist came out. Well, back then we were having this discussion the other night about old TV movies and stuff like this. Everything was witches, demons, because in the culture with Manson and all this other stuff, people couldn't bring themselves to. They couldn't they couldn't bring themselves to think, oh my God, another human being is doing this horrible stuff. So they created these kind of mythologies. You know what I mean? Like, there's these, demon worshiping hippies. They're you know what I mean? Like, and that was in the culture. The reason that movie worked by 1973 was because people were in a panic. They felt like they were being infiltrated by evil. And that's how they dealt with it. If you went back, oh my God, you could make a list this long when you count TV movies and just movies in general of witches and demons. But that was go ahead.
I was going to say, now going back to that book real quick. So The Monster Show, and it's by David J. Scal.
That's it. You got it. That's the book.
I just found it.
You got to get it. You got to get it. It's a classic.
All right, yeah, I'll which for right now. I'll definitely read this. This sounds like it's something up my alley for sure.
Yeah, you definitely would enjoy it.
What was the other thing that I wanted to say real quick, because you kind of brought up an interesting point. Oh, well, actually, it was about the book here. We could actually take this book and turn it into like look at that one zoo. I forget where the zoo is located, but I think it was back in the day. But basically, the zoo put up a mirror, and underneath this mirror, basically said something like the world's most dangerous animal, and it's supposed to be the mirror reflecting back to you.
Right. I've heard of that. Yes.
Dude, I mean, is that not chilling and true? At the same time, I don't know.
Yeah, you could jump off from there and do a whole thing right from there. That's great.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what that sort of just reminded me of. So yeah, like I said, I'll definitely have to take a look at some point of that book. So real quick, Richard. So I know you kind of were talking a little bit about your future Halloween girls and stuff. And as we were talking about too, with different platforms. Now, is there any other type of platform you would want to maybe take Halloween Girl to? And nowadays, you see like audio drama where like podcasts are doing like audio drama. Here's a perfect example. Amazon Audible just started a audio drama for the old school Nickelodeon's Are You Afraid of the Dark?
No kidding. I didn't know that. No. Wow.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. And they just released the first season out on Audible only. So you got 6 episodes. And then 2 episodes is like a 2-parter for one story, but
I would really consider that now that you say, because you're kind of getting me a little fired up about it, because my daughter is big on Audible. We got her like one of her Christmas gifts was a subscription for the year, because that's how she reads pretty much anymore. You know, she like will, and she just loves Audible. But
Mm-hmm.
that's really cool. I mean, somebody else had mentioned this to me before, and I just kind of dismissed it because I thought, wow, you know, I used to make films. What's the difference? But you know, there might be something to that. It's interesting that people are going there and looking at this stuff and creating these shows. So I'm going to put that one in my back pocket. But what I've been doing, I've been pitching the show as a series, and, you know, as a finite series. You know what I mean? And so we've had interest over the year, but again, it's just been a lot of tire kicking. You know what I mean? But I'm constantly pitching. But again, I'm also aware of be careful what you wish for.
Yeah,
you know? I had an opportunity years ago when we did our Maple Ave series. We were had some interest from a company that was an NBC Universal company, Mandalay Entertainment, and they had. I was so thrilled. You know, we went out there. You know, I went out there to pitch the show. They were interested in the show. But in the end, the show would have been in, you know, development hell for years and years and years, because they would have had to start everything from scratch, obviously, because we were just, you know, indie all the way. We weren't going to take anything from what we had, as far as, you know, it was like, oh, we'll take your existing footage. And so in the end, my wife said, you know, I was going to go with whatever happened, you know, but I'm glad that didn't manifest, because it wasn't supposed to. But at the time, I was so scared that I'd gotten myself into this thing. I wanted somebody else to take it over, because I was like, how the hell am I going to do this? Well, I did do it, and it turned out to be a big success. And we actually did really well with it in the times, because this is before school budgets had been cut. We would get sales. We get great sales, DVD sales back. I mean, it was the right thing business-wise and the right thing personally. So, you know, I think about pitching those things, and I never stop, because you never know, it could work out. You never know. But I always think in terms of, but the Audible thing is interesting. I always think in terms of TV. I'm a TV person. I think about television a lot. I think about, you know, like you said, Netflix. I think about stuff like that, you know, limited series.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, I'll throw this out there too, because I've done it for my short films, for 3 of them at least. Pumpkin was obviously so low budget, we didn't really need to do it. But like when it came down to our first short film called The Passenger, a Vermont urban legend, we actually used Kickstarter to raise funds so that we could, you know, get everything we wanted to present it. Because if it wasn't for the crowdfunder, then everything you would have seen, except for one scene. But anyway, the point to this is, like, the original idea was The Passenger was going to be shot on my Samsung Galaxy S9 phone. But because we surpassed a goal, or a stretch goal, after we met our funding cost, we were able to purchase new equipment and completely start over again, reshoot all scenes and everything.
That's great.
So I guess if you wanted to continue making like your short Halloween films, if you wanted to look at it in this route, would you think maybe if you had enough following that you could possibly do like a crowdfund campaign to help raise funds so you can make your visions come to life?
This is another thing that for me has always been, you know, I was talking to you about the book signing and all that last week, which, you know, I was terrified.
Oh yeah.
Same with crowdfunding. That I worry about 2 things. I worry about am I going to wind up basically breaking even in the end, at best? You know, because I'm going to wind up doing giveaways and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, is it going to wind up costing me more than, you know, then I don't know. I worry in the end that it's a lot of. I mean, it worked for you. That's why I'm sitting here listening to you talking about it. But I always worry that for myself, that it would wind up turning into we really, with all the extras we promised, we wound up paying more. You know what I mean?
That's why I would do research before putting it out there. So that's what I did. So one of the interesting things that I've noticed now, and other people started to do it, is digital rewards are so much more better now than physical rewards.
Right.
So, like one of the Kickstarter rewards that you could have done for me was like, let's see, at the time, I think I did $30, and that was the 2 short films that I had at the time, like 2 digital posters and your name in the credits on IMDb, stuff like that. So I tried to.
That's great.
And
That's great. They're good ideas.
And one thing that people love, Richard, is if you have a reward that does mention IMDb. Like if you can get somebody's name on IMDb, they love that.
Of course.
That was one of the popular rewards I have.
Well, I'm going to keep that in mind. I think if I was going to do any kind of like Kickstarter, it would be for the next 2 books, actually, maybe, because believe it or not, the next book might be in color. So.
Oh, speaking of which, yeah, I didn't ask you that too. I was going to ask. So, did you have Halloween Girl as black and white because of the cost of what it would be printed in color, or was it just to keep the nostalgia of the old?
Both.
Like
it was totally both. It was what can we afford? But I already loved 70s black and white horror comics, and we didn't have a lot of money growing up, and I had one 70s black and white. Everything else was color, like Tomb of Dracula and all that kind of stuff from Marvel. I had one Warren. It was a Vampirilla, number 18. What a great, scary ass magazine that scared me for years as a kid. I got it when I was 8. My mother was just, like oblivious to what she was buying for me in the supermarket that summer. But my God, the stories were so vivid, and I'd never seen art like that. I'd never seen that was during the period where they had the great Spanish artists come in. That's how Jim Warren wound up saving his empire, So that was also a love, just a love of 70s black and white because it's a totally different deal. It's not like it's just a black and white. No, right. It's a whole different vibe, and I love the drama. I love the spookiness of black and white. I think you see more of it, to be honest with you, in this new book. Eleanor Garofalo's work is just really haunting, beautiful but haunting. So.
Yeah, tomorrow I'll be. Daddy's almost done. Don't worry. Yeah, she wants to go back outside and play in the leaves. So.
Oh, you're lucky, man. Go play in those leaves, because I remember those days. My daughter's 25, so.
Oh Jesus, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Yeah, I've wanted to ask you about that. But to be fair, Sock Hop Killer and our newest one, which I don't even think I've mentioned the name yet. It's from Beyond.
Yeah.
Killer Popcorn Monster.
Yep. Oh no, I didn't hear that one. No, I didn't
hear they're both black and white, and yeah, they're the artists on both of them, which happened to be like both of my friends did everything. They helped write it, they drew it, they inked it, and then stuff like that. So, but yeah, there's a difference though between the art style, and that's what I loved about it. So in this new one, From Beyond the Killer Popcorn Monster, you almost feel like it's almost like a Scooby-Doo-ish type thing, which is fine. I love Scooby-Doo anyway. But when you see like Sock Hop, you can kind of see more of. I've been trying to figure out how to maybe Tales from the Crypt, like old school animated show, I guess, and stuff like that. So there's definitely, between the two artists that I've worked with, different art styles, but I love them both as their own style. brand,
I think it's
whatever.
some of the most fun you can have when you're doing these books is working with all these great people and having people take your stuff to all these different places. I find that fascinating. I love it to see what people are going to come up with, how they're going to interpret it.
Right. And that's why my buddy Mike Myers, who just did the Killer Popcorn with me, he loved working with me so much because I gave him all the freedom. I'm like, dude, if you have something that you want to do, then do it, man. He's like, yeah, but what do you think?
Well, that's no matter what you're doing, whether you're doing like books, movies, whatever, you don't surround yourself with people where you say, I love you, now change. You surrounded yourself with the people, whether they're actors or not, because you saw something in them. Let them do their thing. Let them help you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And people don't get that. I mean, people do get that. You get that. I get that. But there are people out there who just
are strict on that one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
But good for you.
That's how people don't want to work with you ever again.
Right. That's the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely get it. You'll even hear it from the people who worked with me on my short film. That one thing they love about working with me is I let them do whatever they want, and if they have a suggestion, I listen to it. And if it works out, great. If not, we'll figure out a different way, or we just scratch it. If it doesn't work in the end.
People don't feel invested. You're not going to get their best work.
There's that perfect word, and
that's true. Invested. Everybody's got to feel because they are. They either are a part of it or they're not, and they know if you're blowing smoke up their ass. So it's a philosophical thing. It's just a way of looking at it. You're either going to have a team of people bring something to life, or you're going to just try and move people around like it's a chessboard and come up with a load of crap. You know what I mean? You got to direct. I don't mean that you let everything just go willy-nilly, but there's a time to take your hand off the wheel and let it just, coast down the road and know you're going to be okay because they're taking you to a good place.
Yeah, so. There was one guy where I had to kind of put my foot down and be like, dude, I like your suggestion, but we only have this amount of time to do it in. We can't add anything anymore.
Absolutely. That's part of directing. Yeah. I've had to do that myself, so.
Yeah, it's always it can be a disaster, and then it can work out in your favor.
Right.
So I guess real quick, Richard, before my little one gets more Twitter-pated of wanting to go out on the leave. So real quick to wrap it up is so what can we look forward to again for upcoming Halloween Girls, and where can people keep up to date and find your stuff?
Well, they can find the books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere. Their local comic shop, they can order them from those places. Also, we have you can get an autographed copy of the new book at our website exclusively, rtwfilms.com. You can just get right on there, click right on. The homepage has a link to that right away. And so our stuff's out there. The old films are out there. You can there's a link to them from our website, rtwfilms.com. And next year is definitely going to be the year of Hemlock Ave for sure. That'll be black and white again. And previews, at least, I hope, of the first color Halloween Girl, Gods and Monsters, which will be the third book. We'll see how that works out. I'm kind of seeing what an artist can do for me right now. So, watch that space. You know what I mean? And we'll see what happens. So. But that's where I'm at. I have no interest in writing anything now I swear I just want to take a break. So I really do. I'm not running back, I'm making notes and that's it for story ideas, but I am not interested. I'm taking a nice long break, and I finished up in July, and I've just been kind of trying to chill the hell out. You know what I mean?
It's what helps our mentality, man.
Yeah.
If it breaks us, then we just don't want to do what we love anymore. No.
But that's it. So that's that's where we're at. So, but always keep up with rtwfilms.com for any of the Halloween Girl stuff. All that stuff's there. We're on social media and everything, Facebook and all that jazz.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, Richard, it was a pleasure to finally talk to
Same
you
here.
and everything else, and
Thank
we'll
you,
have
Paul.
to have you on some more. Maybe we can discuss
This,
like the
I really
horror
enjoyed talking
behind
to you.
everything.
This was phenomenal. Thank you, man. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Hey, you're very welcome. It's an honor to talk to you and everything. And oh boy, yes, baby girl. All right. So I guess we'll have you back on for sure, Richard. I can't wait to see what
Awesome.
Halloween Girl takes you next. And for everybody else out there, all the links for Richard can be found in the episode description below. And if I'm missing anything, well, I guess Richard can just send me a naughty email saying that I forgot this. And then I'll have to put it back up. But till then, everybody stay scary and don't do anything stupid and have a happy Halloween.
Amen. Happy Halloween.